Good afternoon, everyone. As Dr. Seabrook mentioned, my name is Rihanna Seister. I'm honored to serve as the founder for the Jacksonville Policy Engagement Group. Excuse me for looking at my phone, but I'm going to use the slide deck. So our philosophy is really straightforward. We are a group of public policy professionals who are aiming to make public policy and civic engagement accessible. We do this through critical dialogue, action, and education. We try to stay true. We work really hard to stay true to our 8 core values. These are the leaders and the critical component of how we are accomplishing our mission and vision. Each month, JPEG hosts a hometown huddle, which is a small, intimate conversation for community leaders and students like yourself to be up close and learn and have an intimate conversation with the local leader. Some of those hometown huddle guests have featured City Councilman Jimmy Peluso, our very own Hispanic outreach coordinator Yaya Cardona. We've also had Jacksonville public policy giant Warren Jones. So those opportunities are for young people and community members to get close, to have proximity with local leaders. Our vision, as I mentioned, is to empower all Jacksonville residents to be engaged in public policy. We do that by educating the public on relevant issues, provoking critical dialogue, and activating community change. We want to give a thank you to our event sponsors, 90 Forward. As Dr. Seabrook mentioned, 90 Forward is a local nonprofit also working really hard to move and make progress in our city. They do this through critical dialogue, hard conversations, they call it. They do it through volunteerism and research. So if you have a second, get to know a little bit more about 90 Forward. Today, we have 3 key purposes that we want to accomplish. The first one is that we encourage you all to become informed and engaged voters. I used to be a college student who would call her mom and say, "Who should I vote for?" or call my dad and say, "Who should I vote for?" I wish I had learned the importance of being informed and engaged at a much younger time, but it's never too late to start. We also want to share key information about voting rules. We have Mr. Jerry Holland, who is Duval County Supervisor of Elections. He will give a great layout of what voting looks like in Duval County. We also have a panelist who would be giving key information on identification. Lastly, we want to encourage you all to start engaging in dialogue that is productive and brings about positive change. So when you leave here today, and if you take away a really big nugget or even a really small nugget, please take it back to your friends, to your colleagues, to your coworkers, so that we can continue making progress for every individual to be engaged in public policy and be informed and activated. We will start our day with a panel discussion. We have 4 powerful panelists today. Then we will hear from Speaker Jerry Holland. After that, we'll open the floor for you all to ask any questions that you may have. And then towards the end, we will just close out. But towards the end of the event, all of the speakers will still be here. If you have a question that you don't want to ask out loud, please approach them, ask them for their contact information, and ask them any questions that you may have. Any questions for me? No, all right. So I'm going to open it up for Ronaldo to make a brief transition to our panelists, and they are going to make their way up as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Ronaldo Horn. I'm the Director of Data and Communications for Jacksonville Policy Engagement Group. Right now we'll be transitioning to our panel portion of our program, where you'll get a chance to get to know our distinguished guests. But to lead us in this conversation, I'm honored to introduce our moderator, Ms. Yanira Yaya Cardona. You can clap, you can clap. A little bit about her. As the founder of Yaya Productions and the first Hispanic outreach coordinator for the city of Jacksonville, Yaya is a powerhouse of cultural connection. She has transformed the city's landscape by co-developing a $750,000 artist grant and consistently creating inclusive spaces that celebrate the rich stories of our Hispanic community. Give it up one more time for Ms. Yanira Cardona.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hola, hola. How you guys feeling? Okay, I want everybody to get up. Everyone get up. Get up for a minute. Let's wiggle, because we just ate. So let's wake up. Let's get up a little bit. I need y'all to wiggle a little bit, because I know sometimes we get the itis after we eat, right? Tell your partner hi. 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 Tell your other neighbor hi. Hi. Okay, now let's sit down and get ready to talk about some serious stuff. I'm going to know a little bit about myself. My name is Janita. That was a great bio, and I am super honored to work with this administration. I've never seen myself working in government, but I've always been a community person. So to me, it was like a natural transition, and I'm very honored when I got the phone call from Mayor Deegan for this position, and I do not take it for granted. But I'm super honored to call these people on the stage my colleagues and community, and I want to start with a question for all of you guys. And let's start with having each panelist give a brief introduction of themselves and share what it means to empower the college vote. What does that actually look like in Jacksonville, and why does it matter right now for students at UNF? So we'll start with
Whoa. Can you hear me? Is this thing on? No. Hey everyone, can you hear me? Hey everyone. My name is Jimmy Peluso. I'm a city council member for the city of Jacksonville. City of now about 1 million people, and all of you probably live here and know that. I'm the city council member for District 7. So there's 14 districts and then 5 at-large council members. The 5 at-large folks get voted on by the whole city, but my district, only the people who live in the district vote for me. So that includes Ortega, Riverside, Avondale, Murray Hill. It includes Edward Waters University, College Gardens, Newtown, Durkeeville. I've also got downtown, La Villa, Brooklyn, East Side, and Springfield. So I've got a giant district that's pretty much the old urban core of the city of Jacksonville. I've worked in politics and in government for a while. I worked on a bunch of political campaigns. And so when I see the question about what does it mean to empower the collegiate vote, I mean, when you hear about it from our supervisor of elections official we have here, Jerry Holland, when you look at the voter registration for the city of Jacksonville and you see the 18 to 25 number, folks like me who have worked on campaigns look at that and they see, how can we get that group of individuals to come out and vote? We know how many folks in that bracket show up to vote or don't vote, whether it be in a municipal election, which has low turnout, a state government election, which has higher turnout, or a presidential, which usually has much higher turnout. But the point is, we know the people that don't vote. So it's up to us as not only those who work in politics, but those in government to really sort of communicate with you guys to make sure you do show up and vote. And if you don't, not only is it known, but it's known by the folks who you didn't vote for. And if you don't vote for people, they're not going to show up and help you guys at the level that you might want. That's just kind of what democracy looks like in today's America. And so that's something that we need to properly communicate and get folks out to vote.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Hi everybody, my name is Kayla Chard. I currently serve as our student government's Chief of Staff. I've had the pleasure of serving as Chief of Staff for 2 years now with our student government, and previously as a legislative senator in the legislative branch here at UNF, and then previous year as a Deputy Chief of Staff. So I've held multiple leadership positions within student government and have gotten to interact with students on a really incredible level, getting to hear their concerns and correlating those student concerns here on campus to what we can do and amplify that and answer those concerns on more of a local and state level. And so today you'll hear about what student government is doing to take your student concerns and amplify that and address those at the state and local level. But I think it's really important that we start having these conversations, and this is the first step, right? Showing up to these kind of events and having the discussion and being open about why college students don't vote. And there's a lot of reasons, but we'll talk about them today. But I think it's really important that we, again, just start showing up to things like these. The first step is showing up and talking about it and being open. And I think that progresses more change. And once we start having these conversations, it's a lot easier to start addressing the problems and looking at where the concerns are and solving them. So I'm excited to talk about those with you all today.
Ms. Pat?
Hey everybody, how you doing today? Ooh, mine is loud. Why is mine working? But my name is Pat McCullough, and I work in the mayor's office. But you know what? I didn't start in the mayor's office. I'm a retired Marine Sergeant Major, never thought about politics. But when I did, it was during the Obama time frame. So I've always worked with young people because it was the college students and the young people who had the movement going. But before that, when I was 19 years old, I coached 13 and 14 years old. And during that time, I said, one day they're going to be old enough and they're going to run things. But now they're about as old as I am. But I was Mayor Deegan's campaign manager, and she became the first female mayor in history. And so there's a lot of ways that we did that. So I hear people say, young folks don't come out to vote. But you know what? I can tell you every campaign that ever worked, young people worked and young people voted. You just got to know where to engage, and that's what I'm going to talk about, is a matter of engaging, and we always say empower, but it's one term that we always forget with young people, and that is emerge. They want to do it. They want to be it. They don't want us all the way telling them about it. That's just true fact. No shade on anybody up here. And they're always different sides, right? We always tell them the who, the what, the when, the how, but you know what young people say? What about me? What about me? And as I talk today, I want to talk from the perspective of we just cannot continue to invite them to the table. We got to make sure that they are architects of building that table. We got to make sure that they are empowered to be decision makers, and I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay, Ms. Pat. Taylor, that's a hard follow-up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Taylor Ashley. She, her pronouns, and I'm the state director at Vote Riders Florida. Ms. Pat actually used to be my boss for a little bit of time several years ago. So she has influenced so many people in this state, but that's why we're not here for that. Anyways, just to mention about empowering collegiate vote and students. Speaking from the nonprofit side, I really think it's always important to make sure that we're providing resources to our colleges. And by that I mean time and money. Making sure that we're investing our time in building relationships when it's not an election year so that we can call on student leaders, call on student organizations like Florida Student Power or Campus Vote Project, and really work with them and partner with them because they are the ones that are building those deep relationships on campus, and also letting students know what us as vote riders do in providing ID education and ID assistance and how we engage with students on campus. We have a variety of kind of events that we can host. We do trainings, we do letter writing parties, we've had arts and crafts parties, just to make it fun in everything that we're doing, but also educating people on the IDs they need, upcoming deadlines, and just making sure that students are overall kind of prepared for the logistics of the elections upcoming.
Thank you. So, Jimmy, let's start with you. And just to give you I remember one of the first campaigns, I was in kindergarten. It was a Bill Clinton campaign. And I didn't know any English. And that got me excited about politics. So just keep that in mind. Shout out to MTV. Rest in peace to MTV. Poor baby. All right, Jimmy, what decision does City Council make that directly affects college students' daily lives, whether it's housing, transportation, public safety, or funding? And how does student voter turnout influence those decisions?
Well, the first thing I'll say is everything you just mentioned, housing, transportation, public safety, and even funding, all those things are literally things local government does. You're not going to see, listen, at the federal government, you've got Pell Grants, and you've got grants to students and student loans, stuff like that. You got FAFSA and everything else. There's a few other policies that come from the federal government. State government, especially because you're in a state school, like there's definitely a decent heavy hand there. But like when it comes to the being and living and working in Duval County, that's local government. That's local. And so when people don't show up to vote or be impacted or claim they're not impacted by that, it's completely false. So let's talk about housing, right? So City of Jacksonville, city council members, we do land use and zoning and planning, city planning. And if you're wondering, does the City of Jacksonville do a really good job at city planning? I would argue they do not, and that we need to work on that, right? When you look at other large metropolitan municipal areas, like you see better city planning, you see a lot more density, you see different types of housing stock, stuff like that. That's something that the local government could really have a heavier hand in, right? Through our comprehensive plan and through policy. By the way, if I've already bored you, that's exactly what they want. Yeah, I mean, the stuff at the local level is still boring, but it's the most important stuff to people's daily lives. Let's talk about transportation, the roads you're on. That's the City of Jacksonville that for the most part fixes up for you guys and makes sure it's properly resurfaced and helps build new roads. There's a few state roads that are out there. Obviously, we've got interstates that the federal government's involved with, but the City of Jacksonville has more roads and more bridges and more transportation options than any of the others. So there's a heavy hand in that too. And if you guys are questioning whether or not the JTA bus system is great or our roads are in the condition that they're supposed to be in, they are not. And so again, we need to make sure we've got local elected leadership and we've got people who are affected by that to talk about it and to be engaged with it. I pushed on budget night this past year. I tried to get an extra $25 million for road resurfacing because we're very deficient in it, and sidewalks, new sidewalks in our city, which directly impact a lot of old neighborhoods that I represent and outside of my district, many of which are heavily low income and heavily impacted by public transportation and ways to get around the city, and we're isolating these neighborhoods, right? These are things that we should be putting our public dollars into. Public safety. JSO gets their entire budget from the City of Jacksonville. Now the sheriff is an elected official. The sheriff is a constitutional officer, elected by who? The voters of Duval County. He or she is on the same ballot as the mayor, city council, supervisor of elections, property appraiser, tax collector, all the other boring jobs that are very important, by the way, but boring nonetheless. Jerry was also our former property appraiser. He'll tell you. Still very important, but it's not exactly a sexy race that a lot of people follow. But the point is, not only is the sheriff a constitutional officer, but their budget goes through city council and through the mayor's office. That's something that directly impacts people. And guess what? It's the largest budget item. JSO received about $1 billion this year. And so, because of the state of Florida and the way things are run in sheriff's offices, they kind of have a lot of carte blanche on what to do with that. But City of Jacksonville, the city council members, could still kind of make sure that we're moving policy in a better direction, which I think we should. And then funding overall. This year we put money into the Hodges Stadium, right? That directly impacts students. We help put money, I think, into the student union because John Delaney was a former mayor and kind of knows this area well. But like, the City of Jacksonville could be heavily involved in that process. Oftentimes we partner with the state because again, it's a state school, but like these are things that we could directly impacts you folks. And so there's so much and more that I could talk about, but I'm sure you want me to shut up.
Thank you, Jimmy. And that's great because I think I get a lot of questions of what does the mayor do and the city council does. So I'm so happy that you're able to talk about that because city council has way more in my opinion, rights of what you guys can do with our money, not the mayor necessarily. All right, Kayla, what issues are UNF students most fired up about right now, and how does student government help translate that energy into civic action beyond campus?
Great question, thank you. So if you follow the Spinnaker News or you're on campus after hours or you're on campus throughout the day and have a commuter student who's here for class and then leaves, you might be recognizing that a lot of students are upset about the federal agents and the implications of what it means to have immigration and custom custom agents on campus, so our ICE on campus. We all received emails about, and our president, Lamayam, is very transparent about the kind of communication that's being sent out, and is very transparent about how ICE can impact students here on campus. Now, when we received those emails, as you know, the latest update that we got is that the university signed an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, with the ICE agents, or ICE, the agency, to be able to receive training by our UPD officers. Now, as to date, none of the officers at UPD have received that kind of training, but it is very important that our president remains transparent about those kind of things, because students do care about that. Students are actively protesting on campus, and I think that is one of the most things that students are aware, not only happening at a federal level, so around the country, but students are upset about that and are very, very open about their the upsetness about that on campus. So that, I think, is one of the main issues right now. And within student government, again, that is a federal issue, so there's not much that a student government can do since we are students. But what we can do is take your concerns and take that kind of passion and translate that into civic action, like the question is asked, because we have an opportunity every year to go to Tallahassee. It's an event called Rally and Tally, where student government officials are able to travel to Tallahassee and lobby on behalf of student needs and concerns. Some other things that I think students are really fired up on campus about is food insecurity. It's something that we are working to address at the campus level with our Lendowing Food Pantry. It's a food pantry that is completely run by students and funded by our ANSP dollars. It provides students an opportunity to receive food at no cost to them with their Osprey One card, and it really helps students to relieve them of that financial insecurity. As we know, some of us aren't eligible for SNAP benefits, which is the federal program that allows money to be spent on food and personal hygiene items. And so with that, the school has, and UNF and student government has been able to now translate that into a food pantry where we offer all that for students at no cost. Some other things I know that students are fired up about on campus is what happened in 2023 and 2024 with the House bills and the Senate bills that were passed about DEI. And again, when things are passed at the federal and the state level, there's not much that student government can hands-on directly do. But like I mentioned, every single year we are rallying in Tallahassee to lobby on behalf of those issues and make sure that our state representatives know that these are issues that students care about. They're passionate about seeing things change. And so I will say that our student government is very, very, hands-on when it comes to taking student concerns and bringing that to the state level when we talk to our representatives and our senators that we're assigned to visit with. Some other things I know is, making sure that we are psychologically safe on campus. So what that means is making sure that we feel safe to speak out against things that we might not agree with on campus without fear of being, harassed or punished for those views. So making sure that all students on campus feel psychologically safe, whether that's in classrooms, in clubs, on other spaces on campus. And so again, student government is actively and always advocating on behalf of students to make sure that the spaces that we take up on campus that we feel psychologically safe in. But yes, other than Rally and Tally, our different leaders within student government, we are always collaborating together to make sure that our student body president, Amelia Dial, can take the information and the concerns that we pass on to her, as she is a Board of Trustees member here on campus, and she also then able to take those concerns to our Board of Governors representative, which is currently the FSU student body president, as he has a seat at the table with the Florida Board of Governors. So while we might not have a direct impact and a direct phone line to our governor or to our state representatives, we are always finding different ways to advocate on behalf of students, whether that's making the right phone calls to certain people we know can be in those spaces, or translating your messages and your concerns to not only our President Lamayam, but other student body presidents, so that we know that we have a unified front when we go to Tallahassee on behalf of the Florida Student Association to make sure that the Board of Governors are hearing our concerns.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Pat, from your work with young people across Jacksonville, what are the biggest barriers preventing students from voting, and which of those can institutions or cities actually fix?
First of all, I want to thank whoever put this together to call people young people and not youth. we have been really fighting that terminology. Young people do not want to be called youth, and they're in college or still being called youth. So I want to thank you all for that, first of all. And the next thing I want you all to know, I'm a straight up advocate, right? I'm a straight up activist, right? I would tell people, I used to have on the tennis shoes in front of City Hall with my fist up and the signs and all of that, to wearing high heels inside the walls, right? But it's still that same fight. It's that same thing that's inside that's still driving me. And so when it comes to young people and we talk about what are the barriers, it's not that they don't care. It's that sometimes they just don't want to. Like, why you don't vote? Because I didn't want to vote. Now we're going to convince young people that there is a cause or a reason that they should vote. But if you don't care about it because people do not care, you think they don't really care about you and they just want your vote, that is a barrier. So we got to figure out how to get to the heart of the matter. So I'm going to jump down and skip a part up here about a project that I was working on, and it's called the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. That project started in 2018 with a group of people with great titles, written books and all, had been appointed by the president of the city council to talk about civil rights. They made a recommendation that Jacksonville becomes a civil rights trail city. Then in 2022, it was another big group, and some people came from the national level who asked, and they had the Civil Rights Conference. Jacksonville should become a civil rights trail city. And then in 2023, when the mayor became mayor and she had all of these transition teams, one of the transition teams said Jacksonville should become a civil rights trail city. No young people, right? So what happened is that a different project manager was assigned in 2024. I went to that first meeting. So all these big wigs at the table and all that. That was the last meeting. 4 cycles of interns, young people. In less than 1 year, that application went to the national level, and we are going to announce that Jacksonville has been awarded at the national level to be a U.S. Civil Rights Trail city. Young people. But what did they learn from that? They learned policy. They learned how history mattered. They learned about voting. They learned about legislation. They learned about all of those things through doing. A matter of fact, there was a young group who was riding in the car with the parents, picking someone up from the airport. They were in the car, embarrassed the parents and said, "Are you registered to vote?" And they said, "Yes." "What party?" You know what I'm saying? So engaging them. The barrier is we need to meet them in various areas. Civic engagement starts with access. Young people need a clear entry point, and that is at different levels. Local government sometimes feels so distant from young people. They are visual people, they are relational people, and they are intentional people. That's what we have to actually meet with them at. Young people engage more when they can see themselves in what they are voting for. They need to be able to see themselves. When we talk about housing and we're talking at a high level, what they're concerned with is the type of house they live in. I would never live in a house like that. I could never live in a neighborhood like that. Those are barriers because it's in their mind, and that is what they see. As far as the city goes, we have a lot of programs. We have the Mayor's Youth at Work program. That's the internship program. It's funding for that. We have the Mayor's Young Leaders Advisory Council. We have civic engagement days. And we also have, in the city of Jacksonville, there are a lot of organizations. But the question I ask, where is the dashboard? Where is the dashboard that young people can go to see how they can get engaged? UNF. JU, nonprofits. Is it somewhere where we can see all of it? That is a barrier. It's going to take all of us to fix that. We need to invite them early, and we need to allow them to stay engaged longer. Engagement becomes leadership when they are given opportunity and a voice. They can go from protesting on the steps of City Hall to being the mayor's campaign manager to working for President Obama and running an entire state and increasing the vote by 14%. Young people can do that, but sometimes we have to get out of their way.
Thank you, Ms. Pat. Now, Taylor, what should every college student in Florida know about voter ID laws, and what mistakes could cost them their vote?
Absolutely. I'm going to answer this in two different parts. One, thinking about voter ID laws and the things that students need to do to prepare to vote for this year. So first, talking about registration, making sure that your registration is up to date. Our primary election registration deadline is going to be July 20th. So you can use your Florida ID number to register online. You can also use your Florida ID number or the last four of your social on a voter registration paper form and turn that in. There's also an ID requirement when you're requesting a vote by mail ballot. So the deadline for upcoming, the primary is going to be August 6th to request your vote by mail ballot. This is something that every 2 years they purge the mail ballot rolls, so you want to make sure that you're requesting that in time. When it comes to actually voting in person and voter ID laws and student IDs, student IDs are one of the listed accepted forms of identification that you can show, but you are required to have an ID that has a photo and a signature on it. The thing that we see most across the state of Florida and college campuses is that student IDs only cover half of that requirement. So your ID will have your photo on it, but it won't have your signature. One of the good things is that you can actually pair IDs, so a lot of students that use their student ID will also have their debit card on them, which fulfills that signature aspect of the voter ID requirement. The other half of this that I wanted to talk about and mention is not just how we have to prepare for voting and voter ID laws, but we actually have seen a lot of legislation filed in the state of Florida and nationally around voter ID laws. So if you've heard things around documentary proof of citizenship on the federal level with the SAVE Act, or even in the state of Florida, we had a bill that was filed last legislative session that would have required documentary proof of citizenship at registration. Of course, we just started our Florida legislative session January 13th. We've already seen a couple of bills filed around elections and voter ID. One of them being HB 985. This bill has a bunch of different aspects that are around voter ID. I'm going to pull this up real quick and run through. So this would see proof of citizenship when you register. If you use your driver's license number, it would check the DMV records. If you use your social security number, it would use the federal SAVE program, that database. There's language in here that would remove voters if they were to get an out-of-state license. It would take it as a written request to remove from voter rolls. The big thing is it would remove previous valid voter IDs, including student IDs, retirement center identifications, and neighborhood association identifications. And last year we also saw a bill that was filed that did not pass that tried to remove student identification from our accepted ID forms. A couple other things that this one does is it would add a non-citizenship marker onto an ID. This doesn't have a bill that has been filed in the Senate yet. The one that we are kind of most concerned about is HB 991 and SB 1334. It has a similar documentary proof of citizenship kind of on the back end, so it would require the voter rolls be checked against the DMV database. And if you don't have if you haven't gotten a real ID, if you haven't provided your citizenship documentation, then you would be notified and you would have to provide the supervisor of elections office your birth certificate or to prove your citizenship. That part of the bill, or there's another piece of the bill that instead of adding non-citizenship marker, it would note on your ID if you were a citizen or not. So we're following these bills. We're going to be doing some advocacy actions around them. And then the final one that I want to mention, just because it would affect the nonprofit kind of world and the work that we do on campus, is HB 725. Highly recommend anybody that does work on campus, or y'all are campus, so to take a look at this. But it gives the universities like a set of requirements and policies that they would individually have to determine. But it would require things like a nonprofit like myself to have a third-party voter registration organization number to be able to come and do work on campus. My organization doesn't do registration, so we don't have to have one of those numbers. And this bill would just create additional hurdles to gain access to students to be able to engage them.
Thank you. Now, quickly, okay, because we're a little short on time. This is for all of you guys. Within, if you can answer within 1 to 2 sentences. If you could give students one concrete action to take in the next 30 days to strengthen their civic power, what would it be? Start with Jimmy.
I have 2 quick ideas. First one, is everyone registered to vote? Raise your hand if you're registered to vote.
Okay.
That's pretty good. All right, there we go. If you haven't been registered, register to vote. Second thing, join an organization. Join the Young Dems, the Young Republicans, Young Libertarians. Join the UNF Dems, Republicans, I mean, whatever. Florida Rising is another great organization that folks can get connected to. Immigrant Rights Coalition or Immigrant Rights Alliance. Find an organization you're passionate about, join it, and be an active member. Like, don't just join it and show up to get coffee. Be involved.
Kayla?
Sweet. I think I can say this because I am a student, but my number one advice, stop being lazy. Do your research and get involved and be there where people are having those conversations. Take up the space. We have the power to be in a lot of these conversations and a lot of these rooms where decisions are being made. So be there. Do your research. Know who your representatives are. Know what they stand for. Stay informed. And do your research before you head to the polls, because it's really important that you go in prepared, educated, and ready to make some informed decisions about what's going on in our communities. And
You guys aren't lazy. You came here.
yeah, you're not
Miss
lazy.
Pat.
So Jimmy kind of took the part about joining organizations, but I want to say is that know the issues and know the issues that matter to you. Build trust with leadership, and don't be afraid to research. ChatGPT, social media, digital tools, they are organizing tools. They are not distractions. You keep on using those tools and you keep asking those different bots different questions until you find the one you want and go vote.
And Taylor?
So I'm going to keep harping on legislative session. I mentioned voter ID laws, the campus bill, but there's so much more that's happening. I encourage you to follow strong organizations that are reporting on this on their social medias. You don't have to do all the research yourself. There's people that are doing it already for you. So organizations like Equal Ground, Campus Vote Project, Florida Student Power, Equality Florida is a great one. Vote Riders Florida. I'm trying to uplift all of these on our stories so that you can just click. But as the legislative session continues, these organizations will create actions, phone banks. And so I just encourage you to pick one of those and be active and do it.
Thank you. And for me, I started in this world because I'm Hispanic and I didn't see any representation for the Hispanic community, which is why I started Yaya Production. I have the only Hispanic festival here, and I got very involved in the community. So I agree with everyone says. Find what you're passionate about and join a group. If there is no group, form it yourself. I'm sure there's other like individuals like yourself, and just start the movement. So thank you guys, and I'm introducing Monique.
Thanks, Yaya. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you again to our moderator and to our panelists. I am going to welcome Jerry Holland. Not the panelists, just Yaya. No, not the panelists, just Yaya. Just Yaya. Panelists, stay. Yep, sorry. Yes, we're going to do Q&A. So I am super excited to introduce Jerry Holland. He is coming here with 24 years of elected public service. That's president of city council, served as property appraisal, He formerly served as supervisor of elections and is back in that role now. During his first tenure, he had over 64,000 students register to vote, which is really incredible. So we really wanted him here today to share some important information about things that you may run across or come into when you go to vote in upcoming elections. And then we wanted him to be here as well for Q&A, just in case you had some questions that he may be most equipped to answer. So welcome up, Jerry. You're welcome. All right. And you can say a few words and then sit.
I'll stand. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. It's today's been a great day. It's one of the days I get to go to the naturalization ceremonies. And yes, I've been to over 100 naturalization ceremonies. And you want to see excitement out of new voters. You want to see excitement out of people who have become U.S. citizens. You can attend a naturalization ceremony at the federal courthouse. And I will tell you, there's 48 citizens today waving their American flag. Every one of them got to introduce themselves, which country they were from 26 different countries. And everyone said, I am so happy to be here. I am so proud to be an American. I am so glad I now will have the right to vote. That is something that is hard to get across to people of how these people have fought to get this right. That if you're a naturalized citizen, you got it just by being born here. You know, what's amazing, it was talked earlier about percentages of turnouts. We looked at naturalized citizens, the turnout rate is 99% because they truly understand the importance. Where they came from, often countries that didn't give them that right. There was no right to vote. Or if you didn't vote the way you were told, you didn't have a right at all. So that's amazing. It is talked about, you know, as people get older, you know, the voter turnout goes up in each age bracket as you go up, you know, because the reality is, as we get older, and I represent that population, is we know how important every one of those offices are. You know, city council, state representatives, state senators, U.S. House, president, governor, mayor, all those are so important. Our judges, you know, a lot of times people will come to me and go, yeah, I vote, but I don't vote in primaries. You know, I wait until see who's the candidates. Oh, what a loss. Because in primaries, you're voting for judges that won't be on necessarily the ballot come November. You're voting for school board. So important who's on the school board. You're voting sometimes of who's going to be in that party to represent you as, you know, your candidate for governor or for president. Primaries are just as important. But wow, the turnout. Turnout in primaries are normally between 19 and 21%. You know, in a city council, it's typically, and mayor, it's about 32%. For governor, it's about 51%. For president, it's about 73 to 74%. They should all be 85 or higher, you know. But the reality as we look at, and you know, when they go to vote, here's the amazing thing too, is people will take the time, go to the polls and vote, and only vote for the top race on the ballot. And for us guys further down the ballot, city council and stuff like that, you're like going, please, you're here. Go all the way down the ballot, vote all the way down. Do your research. The greatest point is know who you're voting for, do your research. It's nice to sometimes go back to our parents or our friends and say, who are you voting for? As a you know, a benchmark of saying, okay, well, we agree with the same ideas. I want to get some perspective, you know, but you have to do the research, you know, and really find out. But a little more about me. One is I am a UNF grad, undergrad and graduate. Undergrad as in transportation and logistics. Graduate student in secondary education, a master's in education. So I do love our Ospreys, you know, and it's good always to come back. But, you know, from a standpoint, as mentioned, I was first elected before some of you were born in '99. I am currently the longest continuously serving elected official in Duval County of either parties. Thank you. And as I tell people, my wife thanks you because she keeps saying, you keep me employed. But you know, as mentioned, it wasn't a sexy position. Oh Lord, it is sexy. Let me tell you, I have been on the Colbert, I have been on Dateline, I have been on, now sometimes you don't necessarily want to be on some of these programs, but you've got to answer the call, you know, whenever it happens. So yes, Supervisor election is a very sexy position. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Don't forget, we also count your votes. Which I'm reminded by a quote that said, it's not important who runs for office, but it's important who counts the votes. Yeah, it was Joseph Stalin, but still, he had some importance, you know. But elections is our passion. And I've served, you know, obviously on the council as council president and as property appraiser, praising all the values in Duval County. But elections is what's so exciting. I mean, when it comes to it, from a standpoint of watching candidates and watching how races develop, and I will say, I've never had a winning candidate come to me and say, Jerry, I shouldn't have won. There had to be fraud, you know. But I've had losing candidates come and say, y'all did something wrong, you know. And see, our role is to really build that confidence in elections, to let people know, regardless of your party, we're there to make sure you know that we're going to do it fair, accurate, and transparent. You know, I often get asked about the 2020 election, and they'll say, do you think it was stolen? And I say, listen, first of all, if I was on a stand and raised my hand, do I think the election? I have no proof. But where I did have a problem with 2020 was transparency. I saw election officials throughout the country, and sometimes they wouldn't answer questions. There was one place up in Pennsylvania, they covered the windows where they were counting votes. You can't do that in elections. If you ever come, and what a great tour, come to our election center. In fact, we're putting in, it'll be completed sometime in April, we're doing a museum at our election center of the history of voting in Duval County. And we take it back to the beginning, and we also cover poll tax. We have all the equipment back for the last 60 years. And it's really going to be a history of how we do voting. But what you'll be impressed with the election center is you can see everything that's going on. You can see us tabulating vote-by-mail ballots. You can see everything when the canvassing board meets and decides if a signature is valid, you know, on a vote-by-mail ballot. You can see and watch all that. It's your elections office, and we invite you to be there and see that. And any questions. If you go online, our website, or if you call our office and you want to speak to me, I put out my cell phone number. You can call me direct. Jimmy knows you can do that, you know, and I take phone calls. In fact, if you Google the Duval County Supervisor Elections Office, it gives you my cell phone number. In fact, I get people who call me and go, I'm sorry, I wanted the office. I said, listen, I work for you. What do you want? How can I help you? And that's the way you're elected officials. That's what you're looking for, is people who work for you. You know, now there are several things I'll kind of give you some heads up when it comes to elections. One is AI is getting very sophisticated. You see now watching the memes and the videos, and we all love the videos when we go on social media. I was hearing in a workshop that I can say 5 words, and from those 5 words, any 5 words, they can duplicate my voice to give any kind of speech that was ever given. So you have to be very, very careful now when you look at even a video and you say, well, that's the candidate saying that. Is it? You know, it is amazing what AI can do. So that's where you really have to dig down and fact check everything. You know, a good source for a lot of things also is our website, duvalelections.gov. It'll give you a lot of history and, of elections, statistics, if you're doing any data gathering or anything of previous elections, but also to give you dates. Obviously, our next election coming up is August 18th, and then November 3rd, first the primary and then the general election. It's what we call the gubernatorial election because the governor's race is on there, but it's got many, many, many other things. And there'll be some constitutional amendments. That's another thing that comes on. We often talk about political races and candidates, but it's those amendments. There are some things that cannot be changed by law except by a constitutional amendment. When it comes to ad valorem taxes, what you pay on property taxes, you can't change that. The legislature can't change that. You, the citizens, are the only ones who can change that when there's an amendment on the ballot. So there's so many things that your vote really does matter. And I will say, when it comes to votes mattering, I've conducted 2 races. One decided by 2 votes. My own race, my first one that I ran that wasn't elected in, I was 2 votes ahead at the end of the night. They counted the vote by mail ballots, and I lost by 46 votes, you know. And so I got a real empathy for close races, you know, because I know both candidates are wondering, did we do it right? But I also had a race that ended up tied. you know. And you may ask, what happens when it's tied? I often interview students and stuff, and they say, well, just you do the election again. Nope, don't get to do it over. You know, in fact, there was an election that was tied in Orange Park, and it was running, I believe it was for mayor. And what he found out, the person that was tied, is that he found out later his wife did not vote that day. Now, I wouldn't want to be home that night, okay? That was probably not a good conversation when she got too busy. And he ended up losing. So, you know, it's important. But in Duval County, we had a tied race. And the way we decided, the law says in the state of Florida, if you have a tied race, you decide it by a game of chance. And guess who gets to decide what the game of chance is? Yes, I do. And if you know me well, it can't just be a flip of the coin because everybody would be gone in minutes. So we kind of stretched it out. You know, if we had the media there, both sides there, everybody was excited. So the first thing we did, the canvassing board was there and the county judge. We drew who would go first of the two candidates, the first chance. And then that candidate flipped to see who would go first for the real drawing. The drawing was we put 20 ping pong balls in a bag, numbered of 1 to 20. And whoever pulled out the highest number would be the candidate, well, the winner, you know. And so, you know, the first one pulled out, I think 7, and then the next one pulled out number 12 and won it. Now, the one who did 7 and lost, he is now on the city council, Roy Diamond. So he went on further and came back, you know. So, you know, just because you lose that game of chance doesn't mean you're out forever, you know. But that's some of the things I wanted to share with you. There is one important thing. In the state of Florida, everybody's driver's license is going to change their number. Everybody. Okay? But guess what? I don't get that information automatically. You have to give it to me. How you know that number's changed is if you look on your driver's license, there's 3 sections of 4-digit numbers. There's one section that's 2 digits. If those 2 digits represent the last 2 years of your birth year, you have not gotten a new driver's license yet. When it expires or you lose it or whatever, you're going to get a new driver's license and your numbers are going to change. Well, that's important because that's how we identify you sometimes at the elections office. If you ask for a vote by mail ballot, you will give your driver's license number. If you sign a petition, you will give your driver's license number. Well, if we don't have the update, you don't get the vote by mail ballot until we get it. You don't get that petition is not validated. So by all means, if you have not updated us, go online, download the form, call us, whatever it takes, but make sure we have your new driver's license number. We are working with the state to try to get them to automatically do it, but it'll be in the session this year, and hopefully that'll happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So just a couple things I want to share, but hey, listen, I love voters and I love candidates. Without the two of them, I wouldn't have a job. So please keep voting. Keep being candidates, okay? You know, thank you very much, and I'll take any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do you want to pass the mic? We're going to head into our Q&A session. So by show of hands, if you have a question for Jerry Holland or anyone on our panel, go ahead and raise your hand now. We'll come to you. Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, just waiting. Hi. My name's Maya Lerner. I'm a student here, and I'm a public relations major, but I'm very interested in government. And a lot of students that go to the University of North Florida live locally, but of course some of them do not live locally. So I live like 45 minutes north of Tampa about. How important would you say it is to change your voter registration from your hometown to here? Because that is something that I did, but I don't know how much that's promoted to other students.
I'll be glad to take that. It really depends on the individual student or voter, meaning this. If you decide that you're going to return back home, that's where after you graduate, then you may want to stay invested in the politics of home. You know, who the county offices, mayor, and things of those nature. If you're not sure, then you may be staying in Jacksonville. You may want to invest your time and your vote effort. But without a doubt, you can make a decision as a student. You can move your registration here, give us your address here, or you can continue voting from home and request a vote by mail ballot and have that come here. But really, it's the student and where you want to invest your vote.
Do you live in the city of Tampa or in Hillsborough County?
Pasco.
Pasco County. Oh yeah, change your voter registration. That county's far gone. You can save this one.
Hey,
vote with us.
But the supervisor of elections, Brian Corley, he's a great guy. He would be glad to help you in Pasco.
Thank you. Yeah, I changed it. I just didn't know, like, it's not something I see promoted a lot to students, and it's probably an important thing.
Yeah, you're right. It's not promoted.
Other questions? One more question?
You're ready to go.
Thank you.
See, testing, all right. So, hello, my name is Devin Douthit. I'm currently a transfer sophomore here. First and foremost, just a tiny little bit about me. I'm in the U.S. Army Reserves, been serving 8 years, so Semper Fidelis to my fellow brethren in uniform. But the question I want to ask is, and again, keeping it very brief, but I've noticed throughout my years of traveling, starting when I graduated high school back in 2016, that there's been a sharp increase of people who, how do I say this? They want to vote either for a person or just a political party. As in this, again, coming back to the fundamental of how to get youngsters out to vote, you know, I say that. Because even for me, I've been left at stumped at many times when you have these sort of conversations of, say I like the person, but I don't agree with the political party they're standing with, because again, we are a two-party republic. So I've always been asked myself, and I say it leaves me stumped at times, of either I like the person but not the party, or I like the party but not the person. How or why can that help with young students of should I even, and the question I've been asked that leaves me completely is just been asked, why should I? Because like I said, I may not agree with either political party, or I don't like anybody that's running. And I'm only counting right now, just for this conversation's sake, the people who actually did their homework. Because I've noticed many others, they'll rant and rave as much as they want, but then you ask them, okay, well, who's the whom, what, where, when, why, and how, and it can't be answered. So if you can give just any tidbits on that, that'd be awesome.
I just quickly want to jump in. First thing I'll say is I think a lot of people feel that way. And the two-party system has really kind of, I think, gotten this country into a weird state. There are some states that have started working on ranked choice voting, which allows you to vote for pretty much anyone. You get to rank who you want, and that way maybe your second choice is the one that wins and they can get some votes. It's a great way to make sure that it's more individualized and it's less about a party. In the state of Florida, we do have kind of that closed primary system, so you need to be a part of one party or the other just to vote in the primary. But one of the great things about Duval County is that we have, we'll call it jungle primaries. It's a first election and a second election. Everyone runs regardless of party, so you got R's and D's on the same, or independents on the same ballot, and if nobody gets 51% or 50 plus 1, then it goes to a runoff, and the top two run against each other. It's like it's yet another way that we can make sure that it shouldn't be the party alone that people align with. It should be the individual and what their values are and what they're pushing for. So like at the local level, we got some cool stuff like that going on. But you're 100% right. I think a lot of Americans, people in Duval County, state of Florida, feel that way. And we could change it at the state level, but it's going to take a lot of action. You want to jump on that too?
Yeah, one other thing. Obviously, we all know it doesn't matter what party you are in a general election in November, you can vote for whoever you want to. The advantages of being in a party is that you do get to choose your candidate to go on in a general election in a party that may align more with you. But I will say, the observation is, as we do student registrations throughout our county and all the high schools, and the fastest growing group is no party affiliation.
That's right.
We have 637,000 voters in Duval County. 142,000 are NPAs, no party affiliation. And really what gravitates to is just what you're saying. I want to vote, I really don't want to align with the party. Sometimes I disagree with both of them, so I just want to be, make the decision on the individual. The only thing you lose out is that partisan primary races. There's still nonpartisan races, school board, judicial, but you lose out in that. But again, when we look at the two parties, and in Duval County, there are only 4,600 voter difference between the two parties. They're about 237,000 to 234. But again, it's the MPAs that keep growing because they really don't want an association with a party. But it's what I tell everybody in Florida. You can be any party you want to, but you just have to make that decision at least 29 days prior to the election.
Yeah. I'll jump in and say that real quick too. I had that same issue with my roommates during the 2024 election. I was living with 3 other girls at the time, and we would constantly have these conversations where we don't know who to vote for. We like the person, not the party, and vice versa. Just like you said, my biggest advice is ambiguity. Remain open to different ideas. Go and talk to people who you might not always agree with and see what they have to say as well, because that changed my outlook on a lot of things, especially with the 2024 election. It's just going and being in spaces where the open conversations are flowing so that you have all these access to different opinions, different outlooks on things, different perspectives, because when you have a kind of a set idea in your head, it's hard to open your mind to other things. But when you have to start having intellectual conversations with your peers and your colleagues, they can open up a lot of doors and perspectives that you might not have even thought of.
Last call for questions. We're good? Okay, close this out.
All right, just want to give a special thank you to our speaker and our panelists today.